Record.
It's for me. You can do your own.
Continue. Okay. Record on this computer. Pause recording. Stop recording. I think it's recording.
Well, in any case, I'm recording just in case.
Oh, it says recording.
I can always send it to you. All right, that's fine.
Wonderful.
All right, let's see if this works.
It's now streaming live on custom live streaming.
But I'm gonna check and make sure, because you never know if it's really happening. Is it happening? Let's see.
Maybe go on Facebook.
It does not appear. Let me check on this. I'm gonna go off this for a second, stop live stream.
Okay.
And then streaming software. It's so strange, I don't know. Connect streaming software to go live. Advanced settings. It should all be set up. This is the thing I don't understand. It's so strange and bizarre. All right, I'm gonna do this one more time. And if it doesn't work, I'll do a different thing and it will work. Frustration. It's like, I don't know what's different. Because I've done this with Maggie so many times. No.
Even if we are live right now in this recording, I want to share this with the world. This is the ad I just got on Instagram.
What is, I'm not able to see it yet. Any pop on socks.
Need a holiday gift idea this year.
Forever recorded. Okay, it's not working, so I'm gonna do the other thing. Or copy streaming link. Let's see if I can do it this way. Thanks for being the guinea pig for this attempt.
Yeah.
To do this. Copy. Oh, I don't think that's what it's going to be.
Synchronous.
Why? Why you be like this? It's weird. It's not doing the thing I'm trying to make it do. Okay, we'll just go live regular. Live on Facebook. Let's try it. Sorry. Okay. Yay, I think we're actually live now. So what I'm going to do is go post in the event this link so that everyone can come find it. Patience, patience. Copy link. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be having this conversation and to making sure that everyone who's invited to the event knows I'm posting it in the event so everyone is aware where to find this live stream. Awesome. Okay, going back. All right. Hi, everybody. Yee. Thank you so much for tuning in to Behind the Doorway, a conversation with Nolan Watt, also known as Compass, who helped to produce this track with me. And for those of you who don't know, I have this beautiful recorded track coming out on October 20th on all platforms. And I will put the pre-save link in the comments here just in case anyone hasn't seen it yet and you want to support by pre-saving it. I'll do that.
I did it.
Oh, thank you. And I wanted to, I was feeling really inspired to have a conversation with Nolan and share it with everyone because we were having a really powerful conversation probably about a week ago today. And as I was in the process of, I had submitted the track and I was looking at submitting to playlists and wanted to talk to him a bit about how he might describe the track itself. And I was realizing some things about my experience that I wanted to share. And I thought, let's just have a conversation. So that's sort of what's behind it. And the thing that came out of it and the reason why sort of the description for the event is what it is, a conversation about the process of creating the doorway and music creation as personal transformation. And the reason why I chose that was because it was sort of the theme that seemed to come up for us, like the gem that I pulled out of that conversation. And so that's sort of, the direction I want to go in. And before we go any further, I want to say welcome to Nolan. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here. And
Yeah, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, Nolan Watt is a multi-instrumentalist, composer, educator, and producer who's usually based in Northern California. He's been in Mexico for the last few months. And he does scoring, mixing, and mastering, and also music education. And I wanted to just, welcome you, Nolan, to just say hi. And if there's anything you want to start off with.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, we had a really powerful conversation last week, just, talking about your track, how we would describe it if we were going to pitch it to Spotify, for example, and kind of rewound the whole experience of being in the studio. I think it was like over a year ago that we started it. And it was a great conversation. And I think during it, we were like, man, we should have hit record and done a live stream right then. And I was like, let's do it next week. So here we are. And it's exciting to share my process, to be part of your process. And I love sharing this with other people too. So the name of this talk, talking about music creation as personal transformation, it's like really powerful to me. And I know it is for you too. So I'm excited to share that with everybody else as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I feel like a good place to start is sort of just to give the background. I met Nolan. He DJ'd an ecstatic dance in Sebastopol in January 2020. And I remember feeling like, and you had just come back from San Marcos, La Laguna, and Lake Atitlan. You had just been there. And when you did that set, I remember feeling vibrationally this really, really deep resonance with the music and with your vibe. And I remember having like one of the best dances that I had in a really long time. And I remember we talked a little bit afterwards, but then we were kind of like doing different things, and then COVID. And you bought some cacao from me a couple times, I think. And then when I was going through a really powerful moment, a lot of moving and turning and emotions inside me, and I felt this really deep calling to create something from that experience that I was in. And I wanted to just take action. It was like I felt compelled almost by some part of myself that was more powerful than any paradigm of like fear. It was like, this must happen now, like as if, somebody was just like, and that's when I reached out to you, and I was like, look, like I want to make something. I remember feeling like unusually solid in my commitment to doing something. and and I remember we had a conversation in Riggle Park, and when I actually got to drop in with you, it was so healing for me. And I remember even talking about that with you, because I had gone to theater school and I had essentially had an arts education, and had been in classes and had projects and been doing all kinds of writing, directing, essentially grassroots producing, and acting training, things like that. But in that time, I hadn't, like, I was finding my voice as an artist, and I was finding my muses, so to speak, but I didn't have the context of that I have now, the self-knowing and the self-love and self-trust that I have now. So
Right.
I was always really, I felt really caged by my own mind and limited, and I wasn't taking ownership of it either, because I didn't know how. And um and yet there was always these themes, or this really deep inner truth about sort of my creative channel, or my obsession, so to speak, like the things that keep you up at night, the things that you could work all night doing, the things that you could spend days mixing, right? Or singing or writing. So I had a connection with that, but I had no outlet to share that with anyone. I felt like I didn't quite find the people that resonated with me. So when I had that conversation with you, I felt like I had found somebody that understood my perspective of my art in a way that no one ever had. And it just made me feel really excited and really supported, because when I shared with you, I shared my vision, which was really vulnerable for me, and also shared that I felt vulnerable, and you were able to really hold that and be like, look, I totally get it, and like,
Let's do this.
let's do it. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you tell that story again. It's like I said, it's rewinding me back. It was kind of cool how we met. It wasn't just meeting as friends; it was meeting as collaborators, as fellow musicians, and yeah, just sharing our ideas and our vision. And yeah, it was after that ecstatic dance. I think maybe was it February or something. It was right before COVID started. I do remember that because I reached out and it was like, hey, let's work on something. Um, I think we could do something really cool together.
Mm.
And then I remember the lockdowns came, the quarantine in California, and there was some time there, but eventually, yeah, we got things started. And yeah, the conversation in the park too, and us just sharing visions, like what do you see, what do I see, like how can we do this together, what can we co-create. And yeah, I remember asking questions. We were like writing notes in a journal and like drawing out storyboards and all this thing. And yeah, just being in the studio. And I remember the first day too, us recording together, and it was sort of just like, well, let's put some samples in Ableton, and let's just make something that kind of sounds like a good launching pad for us to start. And we set up the mic, and we sort of just went. And I remember after that session, it was you sharing, yeah, you're about your vulnerability, and I remember just feeling like, wow, I'm really glad that Diana could show up in this way, like day one in the studio, just really yeah, coming forth and just releasing this really powerful energy inside you and coming out through your voice. And I was like, whoa, this is special. Yeah,
Mm.
that's my memory, and just how everything got started.
Mm.
Yeah, and then obviously with the world of COVID, everything just kind of got stretched out for a long period of time. But yeah, it was a really deep transformative experience from day one with our friendship, and also with our musical collaboration.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember just feeling really blessed. And I loved the feeling of creating like a sacred space in the studio.
Mm.
So like the
Candles and
candles and the smudge, and sometimes we'd have cacao and um,
you had this really like cool holographic card that was like
yeah.
it was like Isis and it was
Uh-huh.
really
Uh-huh. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and I felt for the first time that I could give myself permission to make creation very unique to my spiritual experience. Like really bring the creation process into a ritual space, because what was being asked of me to embody, like the courage and the actual energetic transmission that was coming through, having to really allow
Mm.
and be really present with my fears and my doubt. It felt like I needed to create that kind of ritual space in order to transcend my limitations. And yeah.
Yeah, I could feel that too. I mean, just like, and then me being like, okay, I gotta make sure I'm holding space for this too, because this was a special transmission, what was coming through. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, a practice.
Yeah, and I know that there were moments where I felt really that my doubt was really strong, and that I was maybe not sure how to make certain choices, once things started really getting underway. And I would come in and be like, oh, my voice doesn't feel good today. Like I would have a lot of anxiety about it. And through that, I was also learning what's actually helpful in that situation, and how do I continue to shift my relationship to my voice, because that's part of my service. That's what I'm also offering in the world.
Right.
So it was a catalyzing process for me in really paying attention to the way I was relating to my voice and to myself as an artist. And I think that's, in terms of, and I knew this, but I hadn't really experienced it in terms of recording itself as a transformational process. And I think most people who have been through something like that can definitely speak to that, especially people who make albums. And I know that as a theater artist, you know, producing and creating theater is also that kind of transformational process. I mean, art in general, right, is so
Mm.
powerful. It's such a way to see ourselves reflected in the relationship with our creation, and receive feedback also from our collaborators. It's like a very multifaceted experience. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And for me, like transformation is the heart of why I'm here to make music too. Um, while you were just talking, I had two questions for you, maybe relating back to what we talked about. We're kind of talking about this whole process and the experience, and I'm just wondering for the people that are listening, just to kind of get an idea,
Mm.
can you describe the track a little bit, the doorway that we worked on? I know
Yeah.
it's not out until the 20th, but we're
I
talking
don't
about
know.
what we were channeling and all this transformational process. So everyone's like, I want to hear
What
the
the
song.
heck is it? Yeah, I
Yeah. So
know.
can you tell a little bit about that? And then I think the second question was maybe just looking at your process of transformation from beginning to end through it. What were your biggest hurdles, challenges
Mm.
that you felt with maybe your voice, and also, beyond that? And then now that it's like about to be released, artwork's done, it's almost like a completed process. What was your cycle of transformation throughout it? So
Yes. The first question that you asked me, I really wish I had like saved the pitch, because I thought that I have it. I sent it to someone in a message. I thought that was a really good. Um,
did we take notes? I can't remember.
no. I sent it to someone here. This is what I wrote as the pitch. You ready? Yeah.
I don't think I've heard this yet.
You haven't? Okay. Oh my gosh. It's so vulnerable. Yeah. It's a mythical journey of a wild feminine initiation told through ritualistic drums and rhythmic chanting, including sounds of the ney flute, Middle Eastern frame drum, and haunting vocals, invoking an ancient tribal experience for the modern age. A tale of spiritual awakening that calls each of us into the portal of transformation so we can rise into our full power and truth. This is world ceremonial new age electronic ritual dance music to activate the fire within and alchemize what no longer serves. That's what I wrote.
Oh,
I was like, Spotify, just so you know what's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, with that, talking about the modern day mythology, or you mentioned something like that, what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the song was basically broken up into 3 parts. Can you talk a little bit about that? Just for people to hear. I sound like an interviewer right
now. Yeah, and I also eventually want to get to those other questions. Yeah. So the way that it was coming through to me, and that's what I loved about being able to draw it out. I like being able to draw story out. Is that, and it really is an archetypal story for me that repeatedly has come to me in many different forms, which is basically I basically now think of it as an initiation story. And it involves sort of a reaching through the veil, how there's a beginning where there's a call, there's a beckoning, or in a feminine story of, and not quite the hero's journey, but let's say like the heroine's journey, so to speak. And this can get messy with like gender and everything, but just to say that, if the more masculine journey involves this like really clear call to action, sometimes the feminine journey is a little more mysterious, and it's more like something curious, like Alice in Wonderland. She fell through a hole in the ground, like because she was looking in it to see what was down there, right? Mm-hmm. And she was called, right? She was following the rabbit, or I don't know what it was, or through the looking glass. There's like, or Pandora's box. She's curious, so she opens the box. It's like there's this this communication that comes through in a non-linear way, that or in dreams, that awakens this character to, or this person to an adventure that they don't even realize they're going on. Like they don't actually know what the goal of this adventure is. Like that's the thing that I think, sometimes we know, right? You might know like, okay, I'm going to like accomplish this task, but a lot of times we are called to adventure and we don't really know what the adventure is. So this is what I think is really interesting, is my obsession since I was in college was like, I felt like I was receiving these calls to adventure, but I didn't know who it was that was calling me, and for what reason. And so in this instance, the way this unfolds is like in the track itself, it kind of has that essence where it starts in that way, where there's sort of this reaching through the veil and this sort of awakening, and then a following of that voice, or a following of that energy. And I think it's interesting because in this moment, I feel like talking about it, there's a part of me, because I have this wound from college around saying what the idea is, and then people giving me feedback or critique of like how I didn't achieve that idea, right? Like it's a thing that happens in even the best intentioned spaces of like positive feedback, right, or whatever. But a lot of the feedback I would get was that I was always like, I would have these big visions, or like I would be trying to tell this story, and usually the critique that I would get was like, I didn't understand that, and this wasn't clear, and da 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 da. And it shut me down a lot. So I took it very personally, right? And so in this instance, I noticed myself being like, oh, I don't want to say too much about it, because like at the same time I want people to have their own experience with it as it relates to their own journey. So that, you know, I'm also really curious what people will experience when they receive it, and what story is coming to mind for them, because I also like, I like there to be a little bit of interpersonal interpretation, because when I dance to like ceremonial down tempo, or whatever you want to call it, like when I'm dancing in these ecstatic dances, a lot of the time I'm actually experiencing a story that's playing out in my movement, and sometimes I'm very consciously doing it, and sometimes it's like just coming to me as I'm moving. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's a long explanation.
Yeah, I'm just leaving it at that too, of having people that listen to it going through their own process and their own journey through it. Because I mean, yeah, once everybody does hear it, I think they'll understand what you mean.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. And then I guess to follow with the second question was, how have you seen yourself
Hmm.
looking back now that things are mostly completed with the track after all this time? Just going through the process, do you feel, I don't know, more like stronger, more courageous in stepping into this explorative space more?
Mm.
Or is it still like, it'll always be vulnerable for us, to step into these places? But I guess, what have you learned? And yeah, now
Mm-hmm.
where you are now.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. I mean, wow, there's so much I could say. I definitely feel more courageous. Like I feel like I took a really big step, in healing the limiting beliefs that I have about myself as a creator and as an artist. Um, there's a part of me, like that part of me that was, that I had been talking about, who experienced a lot of wounding in college and who was like seeking resonant collaborators. Like she's very nourished by this. And there's a feeling of integration, um, that is healing, basically, in the way I see it. It's like there was a piece of me that was sort of like floating out there, or like abandoned. And I was like, okay, let's go, come home now. Like let's reconnect, and I'm here to listen and do this for you, uh, and initiate a process whereby like this may only be the first of many similar tracks, in addition to all this other beautiful music that I want to create. But this genre, or this type of thing, is very unique, um, for me.
I just realized I had my microphone muted. But so yeah, it seems like what you're saying, a little more of like emerging a little bit of these parts of yourself that are calling out, and now you've sort of brought them into this creative process.
I think of it like reweaving it back into the wholeness of my own.
Mm.
It's like, oh, this was missing, but it's like an essential thread in who I am, and I want that to come back. I want to be able to express that, and give voice to that, because it's not just. And I will just on a tangent say,
Hmm.
the I'm talking about like the artist part of me, or um, the curious one who falls down the hole. Yeah, like that part of me is like, okay, come back, and this specific, um, recording this track, um, the was an experience of also channeling archetype. So there was the essence of that, which that specific archetype wasn't something that was necessarily with me for a long, long time. But the essence of that archetype, very strong female, magical, mythical energy, that's been with me my whole life. So.
Yeah, I felt it during
Yeah.
the creation, you know? So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. And I wanted to hear more also about, because, part of the impetus to have this conversation was also because I know that you personally have these experiences with the music that you make. And I'd love to just, have people get to hear you a little more around that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, everything you're saying, I very strongly resonate with in the creative process. And it's always been how I've been called into the creative space as well. And it's these bigger archetypal energies, like similar to what you're talking about. It's not me just sitting at my computer and like, oh, let's make a cool beat kind of thing and just see what comes up. I mean, sometimes give yourself permission to do that as well. But for me, a lot of times, like just even getting started with a project, like it's like creating some architecture first. And this comes from, for me, kind of like how I experience these archetypal energies in life. And I don't know how other way to articulate that, but I guess, for example, I could explain about my most recent EP I released, which was called Maya, which is a collection of 4 tracks, but it's also about this hero's journey, right? This circular process. And for me, it was more about, facing illusion and coming just head on with that. And then each track is basically like an embodiment of kind of like the stages of this process, or the initiatory process, the call into this space. And for me, Maya, it was a lot of dark energy. So when you hear that EP, it's fairly it's almost trance-like in a way. Yeah, there's actually Diana sang on it as well. She was featured artist in the first track. So yeah, and it's interesting, it took me a long time to just even complete it. It was almost like a 2-year process. And by the end, me just wanting to release it, the collection of tracks weren't even my favorites necessarily. It was more of like, I need to finish this. I need to tell this story for myself and for anyone else that's curious or interested in hearing about it, and hearing the story. But yeah, because it's like I couldn't not release these tracks, if I can say it that way. So yeah, and then like for me traveling now, it's a whole different story being on the road, and like these different initiations I'm being called into now, and the ways I'm changing, shape shifting, being on the road and coming into these new experiences. And so when I feel something very strongly, it's like, okay, this is where my energy gets pulled into. It's like a vortex. There's a lot of gravity. So, and for me, like I told you, Maya, the EP was more about like this bigger, longer process through life of deeper transformation and illusions and transcending all that. And recently I've been working on some tracks that are more of just like really connecting with nature, and yeah, simply as that is. And so just really blending in, like when I'm in nature, like how I'm feeling, how I'm learning from nature, what it's teaching me, and then just trying to blend that into my musical creations. But yeah, that architecture needs to be there first, I think, and then everything else just will flow into it as needed. It's kind of like just being the channel for whatever spirit wants to say. So
Yeah. Is there anything specific that you want to say about things that you're working on now?
Specific, I mean, yeah, I have a lot of projects going on at the time. Right now I've been meeting a lot of people in San Cristobal, where I live right now. I've been here for about 3 months. So I'm meeting a lot of musicians, handpan players, cellists, percussionists, singers, and just inviting these people over and like, come in, let's just make something from scratch, and trying to document the process, and let's just see what we can create together. Like, I'm such a collaborator. To me too, it's like, it's amazing sometimes just getting together with people and seeing what comes up in that moment too. And that's such a beautiful process. And then taking that and putting it to Ableton and just doing whatever I can with it. So I have a lot of those projects just kind of like in the works right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, it'd be nice to share if people, because one of the things that I loved about working with you is that you have a background in music and sound design, essentially. Like, you studied sound for film, is that?
Yeah, my training when I was in university, I was I double majored in film scoring and electronic production and design. So kind of both sides of the world, a lot of, classical writing and orchestration, in film scoring, and then electronic production. It's more working with tools within digital audio workstations, synthesizers, sampling, all those kinds of things. So yeah, a lot of that background. So that's what I try to carry with me now.
Yeah, and that made it feel so easy for me to just, you know, put something out there and you'd be like, "Oh, you're singing in this scale," and like, oh, and you were able to, even when we were recording, something else, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, like, here's the scale, and oh, these are the harmonies that," like, you were able to really create flow and ease for me, because I'm not necessarily the most studied musical theory and ear training to the extent that you are, which is so astounding to me. And then also your expertise in navigating Ableton, being able to make the sessions feel really productive. And depending on the day, obviously it was like certain things were happening different days, but overall I felt totally held in your gifts.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, technique and all this training, it's hopefully that's not the music, that's just the framework for allowing the music to flow quickly. And like you said,
Totally.
it's flow. So, I try not to think of like, oh, well, let's write a song and this tonality and all this. It's just more like, oh, when you know what's happening, it just can make the process flow a lot easier. And
Totally.
also, fun fact, I've been a gymnastics coach for over 10 years. So that was something that helped out too. Just really working alongside athletes for a long time in large groups, one-on-one. Yeah, so I think that's also another kind of like thing in my tool bag, is just, keeping the flow of energy moving, knowing how to come alongside of people and support their vision. And
Totally.
for me, that's a really important thing with collaborating, especially in how our process evolved too, was like, let's collaborate on something. But once we came in, and I was like, oh wow, she's like really bringing something here, like I need to help channel this, like this is what's going on, rather than like, let's maybe come alongside 50-50 and try something. For me, it felt like this experience was more of holding the space for your transmission to really come through. So in this particular project.
Yeah. And yeah, it was so special. I felt like it really, whatever was going on, I mean, like, to speak to the transformation aspect in another way too, it's like what was going on for me in my life that I needed that. I had just, I mean, we were in a pandemic, and all of my normal commitments seemed to kind of, or excitements and creative outlets sort of were just tossed around and canceled, or whatever was going on. And I had also been going through a lot, like in a personal relationship, non-relationship with somebody that was like also having me look really, really deeply within myself and ask, what am I really creating? What do I really want for my life? And like from that, somewhat challenging inquiry and emotional experience was this drive to create this, because the archetype that was speaking very strongly in this was something that was actually grounding my energy in my body, like in my power. And that's like an aspect of where, and it's very exciting to me because it's an embodiment. It's healing through embodiment in the process of, in this instance, it's creating this. You know, in other instances, it's like people around a circle singing together and drumming, you know, and dancing. And in another instance, it's like a ceremonial ecstatic dance set where there's a live singer vocalizing, you know, on top of the music and channeling something. You know, there's all these different aspects of let's say how like archetypal music and sound and voice and chant is experienced and shared, and the energy, because I'm also a mover, I'm a dancer, like in my as like a natural, probably even more easeful to me than sometimes singing. I don't have as many, because there are actual, like, I don't have as many stories around it. I don't have as much heavy like stuff, I guess, built up around my movement, because I didn't grow up training as a dancer necessarily, but it happens to be one of the places where I feel the most free and connected. And so I'm bringing this around. I say that because the experience of channeling the archetype that is most present in this song, that is that she was sort of, as I was embodying that in a channeling state, I remember even as I was listening to it, you know, we would be doing like recording over things I had already recorded. Listening to it, I would get such an activation in my body, you know, and the Diana self would be like, "Oh my God, this is terrifying," because it felt so powerful. It's like when you hear when you're in a ceremony and somebody starts to sing something and it makes you want to throw up, because it's so alchemizing that it's like going to purge, right? It's meant to like help you release what's not serving. You know, that's like sometimes my experience of song in sound and energy. Like I feel like I'm not explaining this in the best way, but I relate it to my experience of also empowering people's voices and how vocal embodiment is transformational, because we're actually through the voice doing energetic alchemy, you know, and story alchemy. So this experience for me within it was story alchemy and energetic transformation within my own personal myth, as well as making something that then can potentially offer that to somebody else. That was a long explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an insight to how I see and experience these things, because I don't often get to like be nerdy and talk about that.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, like, this is why we're here.
Yeah.
Right? This is why this call is here. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the questions I had at this point. The date once again is October 20th, yeah, for the
Yeah,
release.
it's the Aries full moon. Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking, is there anything? I was gonna check if people had commented on this at all. Not sure.
Are you
just
telling
in
me
case.
people are watching this right now?
What? People are watching this? That's crazy. Hi.
Mhm.
Serena, Darius, Maggie, thanks for joining. I don't know how the captions are on. I don't know how to turn that off, but there it is. Yeah, I'm curious if there's anything anybody wants to share about anything that's coming up for you from what we've been talking about, and if you have personal experiences of music creation or embodiment that's transformational for you. Because I could just keep going on and on. It sometimes just blows my mind. It's like sound is already on its own so transformational. Like the potential for what sound does in all these different traditions and all these different forms. It's just amazing.
Right. And it's like sometimes we don't fully experience sound, and then all of a sudden it's like once we just step into this dimension, it's like right there, and it's like existing around us all the time, and we have instant access to being in that dimension.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's very mystical thing, sound.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so grateful that I'm actually that I've been led here, you know. I mean, it's been a long journey of literally feeling like I just didn't know if I was ever going to land somewhere that felt like I was like really in myself, like really free in
Mm.
myself. And I feel like this track really symbolizes like bringing me through literally the doorway, like literally the portal, the threshold of an initiation from some places within me that were definitely more disempowered, you know,
Mm.
to to now me just saying like, you know what, like I'm releasing this. Like, okay, you know, I remember being like, okay, it's done, you know, because I could have gone on forever being like, I don't know, let's fix this or let's do this. And I could just feel it was like, just call it ready to share, like just say it's complete. And then I was able to feel that freedom of, oh my gosh, like now I have this thing. Like, wow, we really did this thing. And that
Yeah,
was a really cool feeling.
it's a great feeling. Yeah, closing the circle. You know, it's like the closing ceremony. So
Mm.
yeah, I guess the release date will officially mark that, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm curious if the playlisters will actually do anything with it. You know, I don't know. I've only heard maybe one similar, like more similar artist, and it was like this whole album of like Magdalene codes. You know, it was like some kind of channeled thing. And I remember being like, I don't even know how I found it, but I was like, this is like kind of just bizarre in the same way that like my stuff is sort of like outside of normal genre.
I wonder if Alexis knows anything about this. Because yeah, I'm sure he would be very interested in it.
I know. I gotta find it because I was like, whoa, this is a channel. This is a whole album of like channeled vocals transmission. It was
Wow.
like, yeah. But so there's like there are people out there. Yeah. And I like to envision that this track is something that like somebody would put on in a ritual and like a self ritual, and they would be connecting with it, and like connecting with something that they're transforming. They could actually take it and use it for their own very intentional transformation.
Yeah,
So
I would agree.
yeah, so we'll see like what happens. I'm really excited and just really grateful that you came on to talk and share. And I wanted to just use this ending time to offer that, you know, Nolan is open to supporting people in their projects, and I definitely highly recommend that. And so I'd love you to just share, if you're open, what capacity and like what ways you're helping people out right now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a big part of, like I said earlier, like collaboration is such an important part for me. Just, not only seeing my own visions come through music, but also um, I think I come alongside people very well, not only in collaboration, but also in the support of helping people's vision come through. And so this is one of my offerings that I have. And it's actually funny. Today, I am launching my Patreon, and in that, my different tiers, the basic one starting out with just some behind the scenes of like what I'm doing with my sessions. They're not like tutorials, but it's more of like, this is my music and this is my process. So kind of like you're sitting next to me in the studio. And but I'm also offering a little bit of guidance or mentorship depending on what you're looking for. It could be as simple as like you already are a musician, but you don't know Ableton or Logic and you want to try to get your ideas out. I think, Diana, you're kind of in this, like
I'm one of your
my
ideal
model.
clients.
Yeah. So it could be something as simple as that, or if you're like kind of already going, but you need some more support, like weekly calls. So I am doing these kinds of things as well. Or if you just need mixing and mastering work, I also do that. Um, so yeah, I have all the links. Patreon. I have a Fiverr account also where I do mixing and mastering services. Um, yeah, my website's up. I think I can just post all this in the comments for anyone.
Yeah.
Um, I do have a YouTube channel. I'm going to start just posting on there, just in tutorials as well. So yeah, I'm available. I mean, this is what I love doing. This is my calling right now. This is where a lot of my energy is going. So
Yeah, and I want to point out, I remember when we started this project, you were in the process of leaving your job as a gymnastics trainer that you had been doing for 10 years or
yeah,
more.
yeah, it was about 10 years. I mean, I was a competitive gymnast as a youngin, and then I was coaching for 10 years through college and after college, and really devoting a lot of my time to that as well. And music was just like, "Hi, you need to come give me some attention too." So it was something I couldn't ignore, and just being on this process and knowing that I need to devote my life energy to this. So yeah, that came around sometime around the pandemic. So
Yeah.
yeah, since then it's just been like fully devotional back into the realm of music.
I felt like that really in the process of our journey together with this track, like, and other little recordings that we were doing for stuff you were working on. It was like you were committing so fully to music, like right alongside of me committing really fully. And it felt like a really complementary energy.
Yeah, yeah, good point.
Yeah. I mean, that's why there's just something special about this for me, that I was like, I felt like we were supporting each other in this yes. Of
Mm,
like, this is what I want to do. And so for both of us, we were each getting the opportunity to say yes every time and feel like emboldened by that, of like, this is what I'm doing with my life.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
cool. Well, I think we're at the end of our time
Yeah, just about.
almost. I'm gonna just check on the messages. Thanks, Terry, for tuning in from Guatemala. Um, yeah, thanks everybody for watching. And again, if there's anything that comes up for you that you'd like to share about, what we've been talking about, any ideas or personal experiences, welcome to share in the comments. And also, you can share this if there's anyone that you think would love to hear this conversation for any reason. You're welcome to share the video with them.
Mhm.
And before we close, I want to plug myself for a moment. um, in two ways. One, I will post the pre-save link in the comments here. I'm really excited about releasing this. I'm really excited about claiming this, and so please, your support's appreciated. I want to see what happens if people pre-save it, um, and just spread the word. And also, I just released, like kind of in a soft release, I just released some information about the free live training that I'm doing coming up, which is starting October 14th, and it's 3 different days, a Thursday, Tuesday, and a Thursday of diving into vocal empowerment, vocal embodiment as transformation. So I have the link to that already posted, and I'll be talking more about that. But I'm just really excited because I finally finished the graphics and the page and set everything up, and I feel really proud of myself. So I wanted to announce it. Yeah. So thanks so much, Nolan, for jumping on, and
Of course.
excited for us to collaborate again.
Always, yeah. And I'm excited for the release. So yeah, cool. Here we go.
Yay. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you.
Done.
That was fun.
Recording. You're still recording.
Oh.